Do you feel like there are gifts inside of you ready to burst out? Are you feeling unfulfilled and called to make a difference in a more meaningful way? Welcome to Speaking of Impact with your host, Bob DiPasquale. Led by his own unique experiences and curiosity, Bob will inspire you to identify and utilize your gifts in ways that will make more of an impact on the world around you. And now, here's Bob.
Welcome, Peter Baines, to Speaking of Impact. How are you this morning, Peter?
Fantastic, mate. It's great to join you, and thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you, and you are from down under. You're down in Australia right now. I believe it's 10 a.m. your time. I'm recording this at 6 p.m. my time. So you're not the first person we've had from Australia on the show, but we always have a good time with people. So thank you so much for joining us. And your journey is really fascinating. We've had some people work in maybe some ancillary fields, but you started out in forensic evidence and investigation. So I'm kind of excited to learn a little bit about that, but also get really into detail on your moniker of doing good for good and being a good person in the world and helping other people. So maybe you can tell me just a little bit about how you made a transition from your career to your purpose really now.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, mate. So I joined the police as a young fella out of school and studied forensic science and then law at university. And I guess for the first 15, 16 years or so forth, I was involved in the investigation of major crimes, so homicides and major sexual assaults and things like that, suspicious deaths. But the real turning point was the Bali bombings, which occurred in 2002, and we lost 88 Australians, and it was on the back of 9/11, which obviously had a devastating impact in the US and then felt around the world. And Bali bombings was just 12 months after that. And I was part of the Australian team that headed to Bali to identify those who died. And it was the work that we did in Bali as forensic investigators and leading that international identification effort that set us up that if something else happened through Southeast Asia, that would be called upon to assist. And it was Boxing Day of 2004 with the tsunami that hit Indonesia and Thailand, and I deployed into Thailand, leading both the Australian teams and international teams in the identification of the 5,395 bodies that we recovered. And I'd spend several months there leading the teams and identifying the bodies. And then it was at the back end of that, Bob, that I met a group of Thai kids who had all lost their families and homes. And so I started a charity to build a home to support those kids. And as we approach 20 years, we're still there. And, we've grown significantly, taken on a lot more different projects, and our growth continues and the impact for those kids continues.
Wow. So when you were younger, did you desire to go into, criminal justice and evidence and that sort of thing? Was that a career path you wanted to be in?
No, not at all. It was, I was actually looking when I was, the first work experience I did was to work in our national parks, and I really enjoyed the opportunity there. And one reason or another, that's not where I ended up. And it wasn't an ambition or desire or, childhood dream to join the police. It was something that I went to uni straight after school, but didn't find that I had a connection, or I wasn't clear on why I was there, and left there and then joined the police, pretty quickly after, and I really enjoyed my time, but moved into that specialist area of forensic science as a crime scene investigator, and I really enjoyed that, the contribution that we made there.
So we had a friend of mine actually by the name of Jim Lewis, who ended up being an FBI agent, and he was in law enforcement, traditional law enforcement, on the police beat when he was younger in his career. And he talked about how he was writing up fake tickets for people when he was like 5 years old. So he always wanted to go into it.
Yeah,
It seems like
right.
he's had a different path, which is really interesting.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah. So, okay. So you were in Thailand, you did all that work. I would imagine the level of stress is extremely high. You must have to be a very even-keeled person. Not that you're not feeling the emotions of doing that type of work, but there's something to be said for your ability to stay calm, cool, and collected in times of crisis.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that as a society, we move away from and try to avoid risk. As businesses, we look to avoid risk, and as parents and so forth, we protect our kids from risk. But how do we? And the question there is, how do we develop the strength and the resilience and the knowledge and the muscle memory to deal with risk when we're not confronting it? And when we're faced with challenges which are so outside of the norm, we're kind of a bit afraid to take them on because we've been protected and looking to avoid and predict and so forth. And so I think working in Thailand, it was walking into a temple where there was 3,500 decomposing bodies on the ground. It was a sight that I would suggest very few people in the world had ever seen. And the clarity for the role that we had was that as a forensic practitioner, it was certainly unprecedented, but it wasn't confronting to the point where we were paralyzed and didn't know what to do. It just became doing our normal job, but on a much bigger scale.
The sheer volume was what it was. Well, anyway, I give you a lot of credit for that. And I would imagine now that, and you kind of alluded to it about leaders and parents and other people that are building things in society have to build and grow that muscle of resilience and understanding that challenges are important. I have this premise that I've hopefully been living by over the past few years, but I've definitely thought about it a lot. And it's that you have to challenge yourself or someone or something else will. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. And I think that a lot of our success, a lot of our growth comes on the edge of what we perceive as our limitations. And, if we allow other people to impose their limitations on us, we're often limited in our growth. And I think, you're fundamentally right in what you suggest. And the best, some of the best achievements when we think that we've reached the end or we think we're about to give up. And by continuing, we realize we're capable of so much more than what we previously would have given ourselves credit for.
I always find that not only are those challenges going to arise, whether you put them in front of yourself or not, especially in today's world with so much technology and information. I mean, we're all bombarded with stuff all the time. So challenges are abundant. But I think in addition to the fact that we're going to be challenged anyway, I also think that when you overcome a challenge that you've picked on your own volition, something that you decide to take on, it feels to me that it's much more fulfilling when you overcome that challenge because you've decided to take it on yourself. It's something that you've identified as really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, you're right there. And the challenges, build strength in us. And whether they're physical challenges or perhaps it's pursuing a master's degree or writing a book or something that we didn't think was we were capable of. Achieving that gives us strength and confidence in many different areas in our life.
Yeah, and like you said, it could be a physical challenge. Like we had Jen Drummond on episode 174. Those of you listening and remember her on it, she was the first woman to summit the world's 7-second summits. And I mean, the trials and tribulations that she went through and loss that she had to experience to do that. And it's very, very physical, but you identified there's, it could be a mental challenge as well. Not everyone's designed to take on a triathlon. It could be a mental challenge. It could be starting a business or starting a nonprofit organization, which by the way, I want to get into you about your work that you were doing after visiting Thailand. And so those challenges are really, really powerful. So I would imagine your organization and what you do over there is pretty fulfilling to you. Was there a single moment where you decided these kids need help, I got to start an organization, or did it take time to work through that?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that point that you just made about
Okay.
the challenges, and I think one of the things is sometimes we look at the achievements of other people, and Jen, that you talked about, and we can be daunted or put off by their achievements, and we think that whether it's doing an Ironman, that we look at people who swim 3.5 Ks, run cycle 180, then run a full marathon, could never do that. But we don't have to start at that level. We can start, a big achievement for some can be, getting out and doing a 1K run around the block. And I think that then leads into the start of this charity, that not-for-profit in Thailand, is that when I started it, I was in an incredibly difficult and dark place in my life, and I had no understanding as to how I was going to raise the money, what I was going to do. I was a full-time forensic person. I wasn't working in this space of raising money. I didn't have philanthropic connections, and if I would have been thinking about where we are today and how to get there, I probably would have been put off by the enormity of the challenge. But by just starting, and I think that's the biggest lesson for us, and when we're looking at challenges, is just to start, and don't be consumed by the end. And we're now at a place where it'll be 19 years since the tsunami, and we started in the October of 2005. So, and in that time, we've raised 30 million Australian dollars. We've had 35 kids graduate from university. We support 7 properties all across Thailand, looking after hundreds of kids. And again, it's something now we're the largest contributing charity or not-for-profit organization from Australia into Thailand. And if that would have been the benchmark I'd set myself back in 2005, I never would have started. And I think that sometimes it's just, how do you eat the elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time. And I think it's such an important lesson for us, is not to let other people say what we're capable of, not to be daunted by the enormity of the end goal, but just to start.
Can you share with me information about the charity and where people can go to get information?
Yeah, so the charity is called Hands Across the Water, and it's just any Google search will sort that, but it's handsacrossthewater.org.au. And the big thing that we've been doing is it was started in the year that followed the tsunami, and the idea was just to build a home for the kids and who had lost their parents, and built that home. And then what happened, and I've worked in Saudi Arabia, I've worked in Japan, I've worked in Indonesia, Thailand, Australia after crisis, and what happens is there's lots of NGOs, there's lots of charities, there's lots of government, corporate who respond in times of crisis, but too many leave too quickly. And certainly what I saw in Thailand, where there were big branded, well-known charities who responded, provided immediate care, need, and then left. And whilst that might be their remit to respond in times of crisis, the challenges don't go away simply because it's no longer on our television. And as they left, I saw the demand increase. And the first home we built for 32 kids, we quickly had 64 kids living in it. And so we built another home, then we built a community centre to support them. Then in 2010, we took on our first project, which was not related to the tsunami, and started supporting a HIV home, which was located in the northeast of Thailand. And when we took that home on, the kids were dying on a fairly regular basis, and they were dying because they didn't have access to the medicine that they needed. And when we took that home on, we corrected that. We provided access to all of the kids, removed all the financial barriers, and something remarkable happened. The kids stopped dying. And And since that time, we've grown. And right now, as I sit here, we're in the conversation with another partner in Thailand who is struggling to meet the financial or the needs of a home that they've been running for many years. And it looks like we'll take that home over and take that responsibility for another group of 40 odd kids. And that's been our growth. You know, as a charity, we don't seek to grow by taking on more projects because that just adds to the cost, recurrent cost. But you know, our commitment has been long term, and we look at creating futures for the kids. We've got a hospitality training centre that will open soon, a digital learning centre that will open soon. They were both on track to open prior to COVID. And that's about providing opportunities for both the kids in our home and the broader community to receive education that directly leads to employment. So as opposed to educating for qualifications, we provide education that directly leads to employment.
So I give you a lot of credit for all that work, and it's great to have work, and it's great to be making an impact. You know, at the same time, I think, though, man, it's sad that there is such a need in so many things. I mean, here we are 20 years later after that, and, you know, it's never going to end probably anytime soon. But I guess my question is, does the ambition ever run out? I mean, can you ever really feel like the issue is solved per se, and that you've done enough work?
I guess I reflect upon the number of charities in Australia. There's 60,000 charities in Australia, and I can only imagine the number in the US. And you know, both of those countries were wealthy countries, and we have the means to meet the needs. So why do the charities exist? And I think the charity provides that third sector in between government and business. And so to answer your question, will the need ever exist to support those without means to support themselves? And I'd suggest no. And does it mean that we will always be there? Well, you know, that will be for a generation beyond me.
It's just a question that I like to ask, driven what we call impact makers here on the show, because, you know, we have such a positive outlook, even though we're working with some negative situations. So it can be uplifting and it can be inspirational for people. So I appreciate your perspective there. The work that you're doing is extremely powerful, and you also spend a lot of time talking with organizations and helping them build out leadership models, consulting them, building their own resilience as an organization. And I alluded to one of your concepts about doing good for good earlier. And I'd like to know a little bit more, not just doing good by doing good. You know, that's key. I want to dive into that. But the work that you do with organizations, I mean, how is that related, or is it, or do you drive the same inspiration from your keynote addresses that you might in some of the work that you're doing with Hands Across Water?
Yeah, they're all intertwined, Bob, and they're all connected in some way. And a lot of the work that I do with organizations is speaking at conferences and speaking to teams and so forth around, most of the work is around leadership, and it's leadership without authority. And I'd suggest that true leaders are identified by their actions and their reactions. It's not the position that we hold. And this is clear, that comes from the crisis and disaster areas in which I've worked. And, you know, when I reflect upon the work that we did in Thailand, there was 36 different countries, 450 forensic staff, but there was no leadership structure in place because this was something that had never been envisaged. And I look at why the leaders who held those positions, what was it that put them into those positions of leadership? And it was about their speed. It was about their structure. It was around, as leaders, dealing with change with sensitivity. It was around leading with simplicity. But I think overwhelmingly, it was around the presence of leaders. And I think that this is one of the things that that we really don't acknowledge the value of. And you think about something that's a crisis, disaster, natural or otherwise, it's impacted your local community. And you look at who stands out as a leader of that response and what was it that they did. And it's often that they were present, because your presence demonstrates that you care and you understand. And when we're leading, whether it's a business, a team, a community, whether it's in times of crisis or just normal times, when those that we have influence over see us, when they see our presence, they believe that we understand, and they believe that we care. And this was the fundamental thing, I think, that separated the leaders in those crisis and disaster areas in which I've worked. And so I take the businesses and I take keynote addresses through these types of learnings that came out of working in crisis and disaster, because crisis and disaster is just a critical testing ground for leadership. And it's the challenges that we face in business, in building teams and motivating our teams and getting closer to our stakeholders and so forth. They're no different in times of crisis, but normally the planning and the pressure is just a whole lot different. So the contextual leadership lessons that we take from crisis and disaster apply across all different industries. So I take those lessons and learnings and I share those, and of course the building of the charity from nothing to where it is today, and some of the people that I've worked with and the resilience that they've demonstrated, the management of risk and so forth, I think equally apply, and it brings a different context and a different story to it. So that's the work I do. And then the work around doing good by doing good is it's the model that we had built within hands ourselves, and as a charity, there's so many competing for dollar and competing for people's eyes, and so rather than rely on sympathy, or rather than rely on the needs of the kids, we focus on the needs of those who are looking to engage and support with us. So it's really turning philanthropy or CSR or ESG within business into a profit center, because right now the economy is pretty difficult here in Australia. And as a business, as a CFO, as someone in charge of finance, whether it's on the home front or whether you're leading a big business, when times are hard, you look at your cost centers and you reduce those or remove those that aren't essential. And often the first to go within business is that philanthropic support. Then it's down to learning and development and conferences and things like that, because they're seen as a discretionary spend. And what happens, though, is in a difficult time like what we're experiencing in the economy here in Australia, if people start reducing their support for charity, be that business or families or individuals, that's often the time when those in need are leaning into the charities and asking for more. So the demand for services is increasing, but the income flowing in is reducing. So what the model of doing good by doing good is helping turn that CSR, that philanthropy, that ESG into a profit center. Because if a business can look at their commitment to their favorite charity and see that it's bringing them either new market share, it's retaining staff, it's attracting staff, it's brand differentiation, if we can help them look at the profit center that they're going to get, well, of course, they'll stay committed to their charities, because they're not going to remove something that's a profit center. And by doing that, then it helps the charity build this long-term relationship, and there's then a sense of sustainability about the relationship. And rather than the charity being like Oliver Twist and asking for more and begging, we then form an equal partnership, and that's where as I say, the longevity, sustainability and value for each party comes from.
No, it's so powerful. And by the way, information on all the stuff we're talking about is at Peter's website, peterbaines.com.au. We'll put that link in the show notes, along with the link to Hands Across Water's website. but you can find his books there as well. You know, Peter, one of your books is doing good by doing good. So people want to dive into that concept. You can pick up the book there on Peter's website. You know, I was going to ask you before you even got into it about how giving can be a profit center, but you really outlined that. And I love the concept of giving being really good business. I mean, giving and what I like to call, you know, generosity and the generous mindset and generous workplace culture is just good business. It attracts the most talented people. It attracts the most loyal customers because people want to do business with organizations that are doing good and that care about others. And they want to feel like they're contributing to something that's bigger than themselves and that they're part of it. And I think a lot of what you're doing, and I'm sure there's some psychology in there, and we could probably dive into that too, but you know, making people a part or helping them become a part of something that's meaningful and significant is so powerful. So I'd imagine these organizations that you speak with, I would hope that their people are learning that and their people are feeling empowered to be giving themselves, and then that helps the organization as well.
You're right, and you know what exists, Bob, is that there's a fear within most of us about saying that we're committing or we're supporting for a charity and we're expecting a return. You know, so many people and businesses and that I talk with and individuals, and they say, oh no, we're not looking for a return from it. And that's because we've been schooled and we've grown up believing that we should support charity, but we should. But when we derive a benefit back from it, then we'll give more. Because as a business, if we give a portion of our net profit away, well, that's philanthropy, but that will only exist while the business is going well. If the charity, through the various means that exist, can help them grow, and all the things you've just spoken about as well, if we can help them grow, well, then the pie is bigger, so that percentage for the charity increases. And you know, and it was the work that we were doing with our charity where the success that we've had and the growth that we've had is based upon the return that we provide to our individual supporters, to our businesses that support us, and how they can see that either their business or themselves as a person, or in cases both, have increased by their benefit. And many people come back to us, and it's one of the things we do is we run these charity bike rides through Thailand, and they're anything from 5 days to 8 days, and we have a retention rate of 73%. So those who come and ride come back and ride again, and we have more who have ridden 5 times or more than those who have ridden twice. And the reason they do that is because we're meeting a need within those individuals. And one of the famous quotes that I love from one of our riders is, he said, I fundraise for the kids, but I ride for myself. And they keep coming back because of the need that we're creating, or the need that we're satisfying, the community that we're building. And you know, we see businesses who come on these bike rides with us. They'll bring their clients, those that they want to be clients, they'll bring their staff, they'll bring key people within the business. And the strength of the relationships that are built during that short period of time outweigh normal business relationships that can last for years. I was leading a program in Thailand in March of this year for a small team of 8 people. It was a leadership program. I took them away into Thailand, and we had some incredible experiences while we were away. Some of the feedback that we got, and I was listening to the conversations between these 8 team members who had been together in business for some between 5 and 10 years together. And it was like they were, you know, they'd only just met each other. You know, the depth of the relationship was so surface level prior to coming. And the depth that they discovered of each other and they learned about each other in the next 5 days has transformed the way that they work together. And this is one of the things that charity can do. We've got these abilities, so many charities, we've got these abilities to provide these unique experiences that bring people together, bond people together. You know, we run an annual bike ride in Thailand for the real estate industry. you'd think they're super competitive, but they can't, like within the industry, but they came away and they realized we're not competitors, we're colleagues. And now there's been this learning, this sharing, and this growth between them all. And it's some of the best things that they do throughout the year for business growth, for personal development, is spending this time together. And while they're getting all of those benefits, they're supporting our charity. And so that's the success that we get from creating the return to those who support us. And when we focus first as a charity on providing value to you as a potential supporter, as a potential donor, as a potential business, if I can meet your needs first, I know that the money will come. And the money will come in a much bigger and more sustained way than if I simply ask for a donation.
Yeah, that's powerful. So are you suggesting that organizations should consider being charitable, giving, developing these type of programs before they're even profitable?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, on an individual level, I was, before I started Hands, for a number of reasons, I was in the most darkest, financially difficult personal space that I've ever been in. I just came back from Thailand after all of my rotations had finished. I'd separated from my wife. I was couch surfing. I was living in a hostel, and that's when I started the charity. So I couldn't have been at a worse personal time in my life. But starting the charity to do something for someone else transformed my life on every measure. And, you know, if you wait until the time is right to do these types of things, that time will never come. And so the proposition you put forward, should we wait until we're profitable before we start? Well, that's viewing it in the a previous way, that again, it's philanthropy, that I need the money to give away, as opposed to viewing it as one of your profit centers, as a source of income, as a source of growing your business, separating yourself from competitors, creating new market share, creating new brand differentiation, attracting the best talent. Because if we wait until we've got the profit, and we wait until we've achieved what we want, well, we might always be waiting, because of all that benchmark will continue to move, won't it? We want to then grow, then we want to expand, and so forth. But if we embrace that at the beginning, well, then that demonstrates it's part of our culture, it's in part of our values, and it's a key part to the business. And then, as you said previously, we'll attract the type of customers that we want. We'll attract the staff that we want, because they want to align themselves to an organization that shares their values.
That's so powerful. I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of organizations participate in their corporate philanthropic efforts because they're just checking a box, instead of building the culture and the mindset that you're talking about. And so I don't know what your experience is, but I would assume you've seen this as well, that many organizations think, okay, well, it's expected based on our shareholders or people or whoever, we need to show this image, so we need to give money, or we need to send a team off to some place to work on something. But like you said, to them, it's just an event instead of a mindset.
You're fundamentally right. And it's frustrating when it's viewed in that way, and it's done because they'll give because their competitors give, or because that's what's expected, because they're listed on the stock exchange, or the customer base is asking, what are you doing for the community? And it becomes that surface level, and then it will always be that tokenism thing. When you embed it into the business, when you then invest in it properly, like any other area of the business, then there's likely to be this success and this return. And one of the things that we know is that kids leaving uni these days, they will do what I'd suggest to you as a digital interview on the business that they want to work with before they even turn up, before they even apply. So as a business, if it is tokenism, if it's not reported, if it's not measured, if it's not clearly, if people can't see the clear investment and long-term commitment and sustainability to the program, well, the best talent won't even reach out to apply for you because they'll look at it and say, well, these guys aren't serious, and I'll move on to someone else. And we know there's so much research to say those entering the workforce now, this is so important to them. It's not just about the highest salary. It's not just about the best conditions. It's about meeting their needs, about them having time to pursue these type of social ventures that they're interested in. It's about working with organizations that are aligned to their values. It's about being that employer that is preferred because of the investment there. And so when we just see it as we need to tick that box, that's all it'll ever be. But when we invest in it, like every other area of business that we want to grow, that's where we'll get the returns.
Yeah, very, very powerful stuff. Once again, peterbaines.com.au. You all can find more information about Peter. Before I get to a couple last questions for you, Peter, off the top of your head, do you know when the next bike rides are happening? I ask because if you listened to the show before many times, you've heard me talk about a ministry organization that my wife and I have met through called Spoke Folk. And so we actually go on a bike trip every summer. So
yeah, right.
I'd actually be curious to know when you're doing those.
Well, we've got 4 next year so I'll leave Australia in a couple of weeks and head to Thailand, and might be a great escape out of your winter there, Bob. But we've got one in January, one in April, one in July. And so we run 3 or 4 of them a year. And
Awesome.
yeah, I've done 35 of them and I love them. You know, it's as they roll around, I get excited for the group of people. And
That's cool.
The thing I love the most these days is seeing people have their first experience. And, you know, many of them come on the bike ride thinking they're doing something for someone else, which they are. But the real learning is when they're there and they realize the return that they've taken from it. And you would see this through the bike rides that you and your wife do, that people come and think, oh, well, I'll do this because it's supporting someone else. And then they realize that the real benefactor has been themselves, because what they've learned about themselves, the relationships they've formed. And that's the thing I love, is people arriving with the doubts of, can I ride 100 kilometers a day for 5 days? And they're worried about, what if I'm too slow? What if it's, it's too hard? And then they have this personal growth and realization that they're capable of so much more. And it's a real gift for me.
There's nothing more self-transformational than doing something hard for somebody else. I mean, it's amazing. I love it. So yeah, I hear you right away. We're going to talk offline about these rides for sure.
Yeah, cool, mate.
Awesome. All right. So a couple things left to get to. Number one, I want to give a shout out to Amanda Kassar from episode 177 of Hooking Us Up. Amanda, if you're listening, thank you so much for connecting us with Peter and the work that she's doing as well. And she does some work with Hands Across Water. So just wanted to give Amanda a shout out. And it's really the network that I'm building in Australia is kind of fun. So
Yeah,
thank you guys for being in support of our podcast here. Okay, the last couple of things. The first one is, I'm curious to know what the hardest thing about doing this work has been for you.
Sorry, mate, we just lost that. Can you just repeat that question?
Yeah, I'm curious to know what the hardest thing about doing the work that you do is.
Yeah, I guess it's not shying away from the reliance and the dependence that exists. You know, we need to raise a couple of $1 million a year, and there's only a couple of us, so it's not like we have this team of 30 or 40 people. You know, it's there's only a few of us, and up until COVID, 100% of our donations had gone directly to the charity. We'd never used any portion of donors' funds to run the organization, and we were able to achieve that through a social enterprise, a company that I have that set up next to the charity, undertakes its own commercial activities, and meets the costs. Then COVID just stopped the way that we could operate, but so we're raising a couple of $1 million a year, and you know, that's it's hard. It's such a competitive space. It's so much of the awareness and distribution of the message comes from the keynote speaking I do. So through early 2020 through for a couple of years, there was no keynote speaking. So our model of distribution, of sharing the stories, of doing things like this, that all disappeared, and it disappeared overnight. And so it meant attracting new people, creating the opportunities. Like the bike rides all shut down for years, and so it was a really tough time through there. And but whilst I say they're the hard things, the dependence to find the money in such a competitive space, there's the reward far outweighs the struggles.
Mm-hmm. And like I was saying, I mean, those challenges are going to be there, and the need for charitable organizations is not going anywhere anytime soon. So keep pushing. I wish you the best and everything, Peter. So on the flip side of what the challenges are, what's the big vision for the next year or so? Like, what do you see coming forth for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, well, there's a few things. This time next year is the 20th anniversary of the tsunami. And so we know that there'll be a huge focus and attention on that. We know that our bike rides will be in huge demand, and we've got a couple that have already sold out for this year, and we've got one ride in February 2025, which is already sold out. And so next year will be a big year for us, and personally it'll be a big year because I wanted to do something significant to recognize this 20-year journey, a personal journey, and that of the charity. And so a bit over 18 months ago, I came up with a plan where I was going to do a run from one of the HIV homes that we run in the northeast of Thailand. I'll leave there on the 1st of December, and then I'll run to the Tsunami Memorial, and which is in the south, and it's a distance of almost 1,400 kilometers, and I'll run that in 26 days. So I'll be running 60 Ks a day for 26 days, and in the heat of Thailand. And so the big thing for me, Bob, is the run. And I'm doing a lot of training. There's time on my feet, but it's just the run. It's all the organization, it's the sponsorship, it's the raising of the money, it's the establishment of the route and the support crew. And I'm really excited for the challenge. It's, it'll be something pretty big. And so for us, that's what the next 12 months is about. We've just appointed a country director in Thailand to help us grow our operations in Thailand. And because it's a funny thing, we've raised that $30 million or more, and it's only ever gone to Thailand, but we're kind of unknown in Thailand. It's all of that money basically has come from Australia, and we need to change that. We need to ensure that there's, for the long-term future of the charity, money's coming from within Thailand, because it only makes sense those supporting Thai kids should be from Thailand, and not necessarily Australia, and not to eliminate or to reduce, but to complement what we do here in Australia. And so for the next 12 months, there's a personal challenge, and then an organizational challenge to grow and establish ourselves in Thailand, which feels funny to say when we've been doing it for 20 years, but that's the vision for us and the opportunities for us.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I love the personal challenge combined with the organizational challenge. You're putting your money and your feet, in this case, where your mouth is. And we talked about earlier about taking on physical and, mental and organizational challenges. You're doing both. So you're certainly practicing what you're preaching, Peter. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I wish you the best in everything that's going on. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave people with?
No, that's all, Bob. I just think that there's, I think the challenge of our time coming out of COVID, it's a saying from Seth Godin, and he says, the challenge of our time is to find a journey worthy of your heart and your soul. And I think out of COVID, pre-COVID, we took a lot of things for granted. And I think that time of lockdown and time where we were, couldn't do what we choose, we couldn't visit family, we missed a lot of things. I think it helped us realize that we can't take things for granted.
Mhm.
And certainly the circles that I move, I think that comment from, or that quote from Seth is so apt, that when we find a journey that is worthy of our heart and soul, it changes our purpose and changes the reason for getting out of bed each day.
So powerful. Love a lot of the quotes from Seth Godin, by the way. Such a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
He's in marketing, but
Yeah.
he's really in communications.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Peter Baines, amazing conversation, from forensic specialist to impact maker to world changer, especially over in Southeast Asia and Australia. Thank you so much for being on, Peter. We wish you the best.
My pleasure, Bob. It was fantastic to join you, and all the best to you guys.
Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to connect with Bob, visit bobdipasquale.com. Tune in next time for more inspiring stories. And remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.